Serious atheists of Reddit, why do you think religion was created? As a way to explain what we can't explain. The world's a lot less scary when you have an explanation for death and natural disaster. People were just trying to make sense of the world around them. It also had social and political utility. A group of people with shared religious beliefs generally view themselves as being on a team or in a group with shared goals. So religion was used as a common ground for uniting people, a way of easing the sense of uncertainty about life, and a method of control. Honestly, I see religion as a comfort for death. Have you ever been in an area where it is so dark at night you can clearly see the stars, or better yet, the Milky Way? It's amazing. Imagine you did not know what stars or outer space was, and there was no knowledge of science that explained what you see. So you just make something up because it is better to have an explanation of something you otherwise can't explain rationally. Get enough people to believe it and boom, religion. Religion is a way to explain the workings of the world when there was a lack of science. Because people did not understand certain phenomena that were happening around them, thunder, volcanoes, rain, etc. Also, it gave comfort to people when bad things happened, from the death of a loved one to slavery. Control and order. I'm not an atheist, I am agnostic. I think religion was created as a means of figuring out how everything came to be before science was evolved far enough to determine that ourselves. Now it's more of a coping mechanism for a lot of people, or a reason for people to live their lives. It gives people meaning, and I think that's a good thing, just not my thing. The question is not why, but how. Probably there was no goal, only it happened due to unknown amount of factors, and is a byproduct of evolution of cultures. Either to control others, or explain the unexplainable. Making sense of the unknown. Control. Ironically, to stop people from doing nasty things which create disturbance to the collective development of a society. Emo, religious texts were the first book of laws when the concept of nation-state wasn't there. About the spiritual, artistic part of religion, that was the recreation for ancient people when TV or internet wasn't there. Control the masks. 1. Easier to explain things around world before being found out. Some invisible force caused this phenomenon as an easier explanation. 2. It made people focused. Like they did not do many random weird things fearing God. Hindu do not eat cattle because cattle is very useful for milk and agriculture. Incorporating it in religion ensured that. 3. Kings and emperors needed to be in check. Some arrogant king or emperor may do something wonky, ignoring the advisors and priests could ensure that the decision could be thwarted when they say something like Saturn is off course in your horoscope or Venus is ducking you now or something. Fear. I think, the invention of lying, laid it out well. Everyone is afraid of death. Religion in pretty much every iteration ever, regardless of other tenets, makes death not permanent. Because people wanted answers for which they had none, humans are pattern-seeking animals and people wanted power. Religions were created to explain phenomenons, like the fire, the wind, or the sun itself. But with the time, with the discoveries of the explanation of these things, we started to search for a creator of all things, no more animism, but creationism. With the religion has been created a sort of control that is not fully related with the religion itself, like the church, that just for money killed tons of people. Religion has a political function too, so every people that believe in the same God of the politician candidate can believe in the same goal, or ideology. Religion exists for give hope to people, to control them. If you behave good you go to heaven. My theory is that people were getting depressed of having no meaning in life, so they came up with religion and gods to give themselves hope and a feeling that they exist for some greater good. I think religion was created to live a happier life. If you have a religion, you won't have to keep worrying about what happens after you die. I can't speak for all atheists, but in my experience as one, the thought of death being the absolute inevitable end is unsettling. When this is all over, what was the point? You'll just be gone forever and eventually forgot about. But I've convinced myself that what matters is the little things, not the big picture. It's a common misconception that atheists are sad. Most have accepted the inevitability of death. However, this doesn't mean they aren't afraid of it. Religion makes death seem less terrifying. The thought of never being able to experience emotions, relationships, friendships, the world, and life in general is frightening. Religion convinces people that there is more. That there is a reason. I believe religion was also created to have a sense of morals. Religion teaches people what is right and what is wrong. Even though I'm an atheist, I think most religions do a relatively good job of doing this. And when people add their own interpretation, it makes it even better. Having an all-powerful entity telling you how to be a good person is comforting to some people. They don't have to rely on their own judgment. And since said being is of greater power, they wouldn't dare disobey them. It's a primitive form of government, maybe not so bad given current state of world. There was no real way of testing out why things happened back in those days, so people had to wonder what science phenomena was all about, so just thought it was magic. They had no way of knowing any better. For example, Romans wouldn't have known about gravity and wouldn't have had any way of understanding why everything didn't fly off the Earth's surface, so they just thought it was magic. Populations are just a substrate through which ideas flow. These ideas are subject to a natural selection and they multiply, mutate, evolve and go extinct just like living creatures. Religions have a powerful combination of traits that make them thrive in this mind medium. The ancestor of religion was around way before any human was smart enough to try to make sense of the world around them. These explanation myths evolved from more basic dogma. In the early days of the development of society, there were some things that happened during the day which couldn't be explained, maybe an earthquake or a violent storm with thunder and lightning, instances that couldn't be explained by primitive science, by the witch doctor or medicine man of the time. People needed some way to explain these events. In the modern world, we've kept religion for much the same reason we've kept politics, to control and manipulate large swaths of the world's population, to control how society collectively thinks and how we interact with each other, to control most of the world's wealth by a very small number of people. It's a method of control, perhaps once there had been a noble cause. But like most clubs you need to pay to get in, have to be accepted by someone further up in the hierarchy. With this power there is control and then you need to keep control. Perhaps your religion has laws, perhaps your young have to be indoctrinated, perhaps having to memorize verses or attend a religious school. Wars have and are still being waged in the name of religion. It's just another way to govern and control. In the beginning people were scared. Predators hunted them, the weather tried to kill them and everything was beyond their control. Whether it was a hallucination or a moment during a storm pleading it to stop, something happened and they thought it was something beyond them. A being of power had caused the storm to stop or had appeared in the sky looking angelic. And so the stories began. It brought hope and a form of control. Pray and be saved is all you had to do. Think of it like the boogeyman in the closet. Small children are afraid of the dark so they create creatures in the shadows. But when the light is on, nothing exists. Religion was created originally to explain natural phenomena. Gods and deities were created for the sole purpose of explaining why such a thing happens. It was easier back then to believe in an all-powerful deity than try to understand how it actually works and why. Today we have science and we can explain those things that before we could not. There are still many questions to be asked and many problems to be solved, but as for now many people such as myself have chosen to believe that there is no God, mainly because the religions forged by our ancestors don't make sense or are just wrong in countless aspects of the religion itself. A method of controlling the masks but initially a means of explaining the world around them. I think it's a similar question to what made humans so successful in the animal kingdom. A lot of different things were selected for. Religion as we know it evolved into something that fills a lot of needs we have. It's comforting. It provides community. It provides answers. It just provides a lot of what we naturally yearn for. Religion has gone through so many iterations, constantly changing over time to meet the needs of the current society. And since we can choose which religion and which parts speak to us, we are the selecting pressure to make religions into exactly what we want. I think that's why religion, as an idea, is so successful. It's a shortcut to providing what we want. It's ideological candy. Religion brought people together, as mentioned in other comments. I'd like to add a few things. It also provided some rules that helped improve survivability. A "don't eat pork" rule was in religion because of trichinosis, for example. While they didn't know anything about trichinosis, they knew that people who ate pork got sick, so they encouraged believers to not eat it. Therefore, believers were more likely to survive and procreate. Because shared myths are the only things that keep societies together. A good example of this is we all pretend paper money has value. In reality it only has value because we all pretend it does. Another good example is borders. They're not real in the sense that if everybody that believed in them died they would cease to exist. Everyone is saying the same thing, bring people together and for comfort for the unknown, but let's not forget about money. Selling tickets for a guaranteed spot in heaven. Religion is good at building a community, at least those are members of the church. But it does create an in-group, out-group situation. Internally it holds people together and provides a framework for groups living together. Putting a set of rules for good and bad behavior is necessary. The other post saying that it helps people make sense of the world is also true. Frankly, I don't know that you could move from an individual to group agrarian society without some form of religion. It would be hard to do without all of the information, knowledge, and growth that comes from having a society that can support scientific and philosophical study. Unfortunately, the rules that were put in place are very misogynistic and entrench power in a small group. It's not much of a surprise for many reasons.